Alrighty, what's up everybody? Marhan Stories here. Now, I already said that episode 2 will be coming out today too because of, well, everything that happened. So, we start off right after we left off at, Mr. Smoothie's with All Might dropping off the boys at home, while also even waiting at Inko, who was right back, with Marthu giving us a little explanation that, well, All Might decided to come up to her, telling her that he was basically a trainer for them. Which she was skeptical at first, but after Nezu working some documents around and telling him her name, the two have become somewhat friends. Now then, we show Marsuru and Izuku, with Marsuru having his hair now fully tied into somewhat of a ponytail, or a messy one at the fact, while him also looking at the watch, while smiling at himself thinking that he's awesome. Now then, he puts on his UA uniform with him and Izuku. Well, he puts on his UA uniform along with the black and white jacket around it, or I guess technically under it. However, Japan has that word. With the two heading off to school after Inko worries them into a lot. Now then, the two boys get to UA actually really early, with them still meeting Ochako. Now then, Master almost immediately heads to go sit and talk with Kyoka, while some of the other students in the class outright look at him, since they notice that the classes aren't even. But the reason why Marsuru wasn't put into another class was because of the fact that All Might and Nezu both want him and Izuku to stay close by together, no matter what, just in case. This is how strange the alien watch is, and well, Izuku being the one for all ruler. Now then, with this, multiple of the students just kind of look at Marsuru, somewhat amazed, as Marsuru got, I don't feel like I had to explain, but Marsuru ended up getting the top score for the leader points, which definitely inflated his ego just a little bit. And so everyone's kind of looking at him amazed at how, just wondering who is this guy, and just wondering what else he can do. Now then, with this, Marsuru does almost a meet. Now then, with this, things go to canon from normal. With until Ida starts yelling at Bakugo, which leaves Marsuru to get up from his seat by Kyoka and heading over to him. Ida telling him, dude, I don't want to be that guy, but trust me, with Explodey over there, that won't work. I suggest you just give it up as it is. With Ida telling him that saying that it's deplorable for students to, put their feet on a desk. With Marsuru just kind of telling him to chill, telling him his name is Marsuru Midoriya, but considering the fact that him and his brother both have the last name, just call him Marsu. As to not get them too mixed up. With Ida taking it okay before shaking his hand, telling him he's Tenya Ida, with Marsuru actually getting somewhat surprised about this before immediately going off. Wait, like, Ida from like the Ingenium family? With Ida confirming, while Marsuru starts going on a somewhat red, telling him, dude, that's awesome. Your big brother is so cool. I based one of my transformations around some of his moves with the help of my brother. I'm guessing you have the same quirk, right? Well, Ida is somewhat surprised to hear this. The two start eventually bouncing off each other, talking about Tensei, and also even talking about Ida himself. Marsuru kind of feels something wrong, so he turns to see Izuku talking to that girl from yesterday, that from what Marsuru knows, Izuku saved. He also sees an old, somewhat unkept man in a bag. With Marsuru asking, who the hell let the hobo in here? Which immediately leads to everyone looking to see Aizawa, before he gets out his bag telling everyone, basically telling the whole shit he did in the original. Now then, eventually this leads to him missing assembly and going out to get ready to train. Now then, because Marsuru was the one that got the top score here, Aizawa comes to him telling him to throw the ball. With this, Marsthrew lines it up and tries to transform into forearms, only to get burnout. With him giving a sigh, saying, "Not who I was going for, but can help." As he grabs the ball before chasing into a fireball that fires off, with, while also cutting off the flames, but enough to where it ignites more like an explosion. With Tatsuki seeing this and thinking, "That bastard copied my quirk," angrily as the ball flies off, getting up to 800 meters. With this, Marsthrew hits the Omnitrix symbol on his belt of his pants. Well, Hero. If I say Omnitrix earlier before he finds out what it is, just know I mean technically the Hero Watch, since he doesn't know what its name is yet. Okay? Okay. Now then, with this, as always shows everyone and tells them to get in a gear. So we start with the test. First off, starting with the speed test, which Marsthrew tries to go for accelerate, but in turns he gets an alien. He gets a somewhat new alien to him that he hasn't fully figured out yet. Crash! After the green flash, he's Crash Hopper. With him looking at himself saying, "That's not who I was going for, but okay." As we take another flashback, hearing Marsthrew say that he's been getting some new aliens popping up in the watch. What can we do about that? But as also telling Marsthrew that an understring that to help hide for his quirk, that under string circumstances it can unlock new forms, just in case. As basically an extra way to cover his ass if any more transformations pop out. With this being one of them, what he's dubbed, obviously, Crash Hopper. He has 3 more transformations that he hasn't really gotten all too used with, besides his original 10. But he's trying his best, and so he uses Crash Hopper's legs, even though he's still getting the hang of it, he does still manage to make it, with him getting 3rd place in terms of this, while next one is the jumping, which he definitely takes advantage of, using Crash Hopper's legs to jump his way all the way to the finish line, getting 1st. And with this, he also decides to de-transform back, letting the watch go into recharge mode, while they'll go over multiple other tests. Now then, things like this go the same for like a while, but eventually the scores come out, with actually Katsuki and Marsthrew tying for the top, thanks to some of Marshrew's failed attempts with some aliens, and knowing that it wouldn't be smart to run out the battery by switching. And so instead, he kind of just stayed as a few aliens, even though they weren't for the best. But yeah, so Aizawa tells him that he was joking about expulsion, and while let's also get into the Zuku side of this, because he does astronomically better than he did in Canon, thanks to having 8% of One for All full cowling now. The only one he still does end up breaking his finger on the ball throw, but he did it on purpose to get a higher score. Well, Aizawa thinking that this kid must be crazy, but screw it. So with that, the day comes to an end, with Marsthrew, Kyoka, and Izuku all walking, but eventually they get stopped by Uraraka and Ida, with them joining the group. With Uraraka asking first off, asking if it's not as sensitive, but does he and Izuku have a different parent? Because I can't believe that's me. Does him and Izuku have a different parent? Because of the fact that they look really different. With Marsthrew telling that, "Oh yeah, I'm adopted," and with her trying not to intrude, but him just waving her off, telling her it's alright. Which also leads to her asking the next question: what about him and Kyoka? They seem like they know each other. As she looks down to them holding hands, with them also getting off the spill, explained to her how they met. That around the age of 11, Marsthrew went to the music store, where he had bumped into Kyoka, and the two just kind of clicked while talking about music. Even if he was just there to look for something to play while playing soccer. But the two clicked, and, well, they kept talking, so eventually they became childhood friends, and around last month they got together. With Ochako and Ida giving out congratulations, as the group then starts walking, going home. Now then, over the next few days, things are somewhat normal. For eventually, All Might comes in through the door like a hero, telling them how they have hero costumes, things like that, that they're getting ready for an exam again. And with this, Masaru ends up, now then, with this, some things are the same, obviously, but really the changes here are Izuku and, well, obviously Masaru. Now then, Izuku's suit looks more like the one from season 2. Well, yeah. Or, I guess season 3, wait, no, no, season 3, it's season 3. Yeah, Izuku's costume looks more like season 3, after he gets it fixed from, like that. Wow then, for Masaru, when he comes out, he's in a pair of black jeans, uh, well, about a pair of black, say, bluish, probably not, bluish jeans, a black t-shirt, and a green leather jacket with a tin on it. Now then, with this, All Might starts bringing up pairs, with Masaru unfortunately getting Mineta. They're going against Shoji and Shoto here, with Masaru looking at the half and half kid. He knows that he's Endeavor's kid. He thinks that he could definitely fight him, and that this would definitely be fun. So, things go canon from here. But, let's get into Izuku's fight. Now then, Izuku and Taco go through the room, and things go like in canon until Katsuki comes. With Izuku kicking his arm out the way, moving Uraka out the way. Now then, this fight is less hateful on Katsuki's part in the beginning. Now, while they do fight, and Izuku's actually able to throw blows with Katsuki, say more in a, with him giving out kicks and punches, this fight is a lot less hateful than in canon, for the pure reason they're actually friends. Friends here are, if anything, just somewhat strained childhood friends, instead of Katsuki being Izuku's outright bully. Now, this eventually gets to Katsuki preparing to pull his explosion core, knowing damn well that Izuku should be able to survive this, with Izuku telling him to bring it on, telling him that Deku is the name of a hero, and telling him to go ahead and fire it. And with that, Katsuki does. All Might is a little worried about the egging on, but Izuku manages to survive the blow before rushing through the smoke, delivering a Delaware smash right to Katsuki's stomach, sending him flying into a wall, apparently knocking him out for a little bit. And with this, Izuku takes the chance to go up to the bomb room, and with that, him and Osako kind of easily overpowered Ida and touch the bomb. With that, they win. Now then, things go like this for canon, so let's get into Masaru and Mineta versus Todoroki. Todoroki and Shoji. Now then, the moment they, before things get off, Mineta does somewhat annoy Masaru. Masaru telling him that he has 12 different ways to kick his ass. Don't look at his girlfriend. You know what? Just quit being a damn perv altogether. While kind of picking him up and just kind of shaking him around. Masaru was really annoyed with him before dropping him and telling him to get his shit together. To the hero school. Mineta is obviously somewhat scared from this. So eventually, the two go in, with Masaru deciding to just do this as fast as possible and get it over with. So he switches out to a somewhat ghostly-like Dial for saying it's hero time, slapping it down, and him becoming something like a ghost, with him having silver chains all around his body, while one seems to a purple eye compared to his purple, well, what somewhat weirds Meta out because of the fact that from what he can see, all of his transformations, they all have the same eye color as him, besides this one. But almost immediately, the eye turns back to a somewhat green and blue mix before Marsuru calls out Phantom, with him telling me that this is a ghost alien. Or, I can never get Ghost Freak's voice right. I'm trying to do like a new voice thing, but I'm not. I'm not gonna try with Ghost Freak. I know I won't be able to. Or I guess Phantom here, but besides that, with Marsuru telling him that this is a new, this is one of his transformations. Just stick by him and don't get caught. Although he immediately has to grab Mineta, making him intangible, as ice basically goes right through completely all the building. With Todoroki coming up and telling him, with Marsuru asking, really? That was his move? Just freeze the entire building? What if there were people in here? With Todoroki telling him that he would have fixed it. Which leads to Marsuru giving him a slight glare before putting Mineta down and telling him to go get the bomb. Now then, before Todoroki can do anything, Marsuru raises a hand, catching him in telekinesis, before swinging him right into the side of a wall, and then immediately picking him up, grabbing him, and slumming him again, with Todoroki trying to freeze him, but surprise, surprise, he can't touch a ghost. With Marsuru looking at him that isn't the right way to do this. You could have hurt someone. But Todoroki is able to somewhat get him off by creating an ice wall, with Marsuru now being thoroughly annoyed by Todoroki's deflectance, immediately goes through the wall, phases right through Todoroki, before coming behind him and putting his hands right through between it, in his head, causing him to let out a somewhat scream of pain, which shocks the others, besides Izuku and All Might, before Marsuru drops Shoto's unconscious body to the ground, with him just floating up and immediately grabbing Shoji in a telekinetic hold and just throwing him through a wall. Or more so into a wall, not pushing him through it. Knocking him out and grabbing the bomb. Now then, after this is done, some other students do come up, asking Marsuru why would he do that, and that doesn't he think that was maybe a tad bit too violent? With Marsuru, while still in a bad mood, just apologizes. Telling him how some of his transformations influence his personality, and for some reason, Phantom always leads to him getting more violent than what he would normally be. That combined with the bad mood Todoroki put him in, definitely didn't help. And with that, Marsuru just kind of leaves it there and walks off, eventually meeting back up with All Might and Izuku, before kind of just ditching, with him and Izuku walking off to Nezu's room, with Nezu telling Marsuru that he does have to watch his temper in that form. He knows how he can get. Marsuru just giving him a yes sir before they go. Now then, because of this, things are somewhat strange between Marsuru and Shoto here in this world. And so the two are at odds right now. And now then, that also leads us up to the USJ. Now then, let's get into it. During the bus ride, everyone reveals their quirks. With Tatsuki, while still angry, throwing insults, but not as much as the original. While Marsuru and Shoto do just kind of glare at each other for a little bit, while Marsuru just sits by Kyoka, telling her that he doesn't like that guy's attitude. With Kyoka explaining that she can kind of get it with him being cold, but best not to start fights. Now then, obviously this conversation originally gets to Marsuru with him telling him his power and things like that. Now then, they get to USJ, but obviously, as we know, things can never be too easy. So with this, a portal opens up in the middle of the USJ with, well, things go similar to canon. But during this time, Shigaraki does look at all of his goons and tell him, remember, we're here for the Not only here for All Might, we're here for the boy with the watch. Master's partner wants it. I also feel like I should mention that the whole Ida thing with Class 1A still went off normally. I feel like I should mention that. He is still the class president. But with this, Toragiri splits everyone up, with Masaru ending up in the Wasteland Zone. With, wait, who ended up in the Wasteland Zone in canon? I kind of forgot. Who ended up in the Wasteland Zone in canon? Now, let's just say he ended up here alone, okay? And with this ending up here alone, uh, Master almost immediately jumped by multiple villains, telling them to hand over the watch. Him telling them over his dead body, and that it's time to meet someone. As he sees he's kind of outnumbered here, so he dials up the hero watch and slaps it down, coming up black and white TV like Aelin, with him yelling out splits before splitting multiple times and, well, attacking multiple villains around him. Now then, since these guys are kind of fathered, they go down really easy, since Arthur does know how to fight, even if it's just punch and kicks. He knows how to throw a fist, okay? These guys are kind of bottom tier of the barrel goons. But after this, he eventually regroups, along with his clone, and makes his way to where he saw Aizawa go, where he sees him getting pinned by the Nomu, his head crushed, and with this, Masaru immediately pops up the watch, transforming into forearms. And with this, he almost. But he also sees Shigaraki going for a kill shot, which has forearms. He makes his way over there, sending out a massive punch, along with Izuku causing a shockwave that the Nomu takes, but is obviously damaged by, as the ripped apart skin on its chest slowly heals. With Shigaraki telling them that they were going for a kill shot there. Aren't they supposed to be heroes? Before the Nomu ends up throwing Masaru away, seeing him as the bigger threat. And with this, I say, this is where I want to leave off part 2. Yeah, I feel like this is a good place. With that, everybody, Marhan Stories out.